$150 a month. That's the number almost nobody in personal finance wants to talk about. Because if that's all you're investing every month, compound interest probably isn't doing what you've been told it does. It's working, technically, but after decades of investing, it may still leave you wondering why your account never seemed to take off. The retirement calculators don't warn you about this. The colorful charts don't mention it. Most financial advice skips right over it because it focuses on the ending balance instead of explaining what has to happen before compounding becomes powerful enough to matter in your everyday life. Hey, I'm Brian, and I spend way too much time thinking about why disciplined people follow all the right financial advice and still feel like they're getting nowhere. The truth is that compound interest isn't broken. Your expectations probably are. Once you understand the hidden threshold, you'll stop measuring your progress the wrong way and start focusing on the one number that actually determines when your investments begin pulling their own weight. If you enjoy practical personal finance explained with actual numbers instead of motivational slogans, consider subscribing. Before we're finished, I'll show you one simple calculation using your own investment account that almost nobody else ever talks about. If you've been investing for a while, you've probably experienced the same moment. You make your monthly contribution. You avoid unnecessary spending. You ignore scary headlines. You keep buying your index fund month after month. Then you open your account, and the balance barely looks different. That feeling has a name. It's Phase 1. Phase 1 is the period where almost every dollar of growth comes from you, not from compound interest. Everyone tells you the market is doing the work, but your paycheck is still carrying almost the entire load. That's why so many people eventually become discouraged. Not because investing failed, because their expectations were aimed at the wrong stage of the journey. Let me put actual numbers on the problem first because vague is useless. Suppose you invest $50 every month and earn an average annual return of 8% for 30 years. At the end, you'll have roughly $74,000. Double that contribution to $100 every month, and after the same 30 years, you end up with about $149,000. Increase it again to $150 every month, and you're looking at roughly $223,000. Those aren't bad outcomes, but they're a long way from the millionaire stories that dominate personal finance videos. And that's where people become convinced something must be wrong with compound interest. Nothing is wrong. You're simply spending most of your investing life in Phase 1. Once you understand that, everything about investing starts making more sense. If you're new here and just subscribed, comment your name below. I read every comment and shout out new subscribers in my next video. I do appreciate you joining me on this finance journey. Imagine trying to start an old diesel engine on a freezing winter morning. You turn the key, the starter motor strains, the battery is working, fuel is moving through the system. Every mechanical part is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Yet the engine hasn't started, so you keep turning the key. Then suddenly something changes. One cylinder fires, then another. Within seconds, the engine isn't relying on the starter motor anymore. Now the engine powers itself. Your investment portfolio behaves almost exactly the same way. Phase 1 is the starter phase. Every monthly contribution is like turning that key again. You're supplying almost all of the energy. The investment returns exist, but they're simply too small to make a noticeable difference. Phase 2 is the engine phase. That's when your existing investments begin producing enough annual growth that the portfolio starts contributing almost as much as you do, and eventually more. The engine finally helps push the car forward. This is the hidden threshold almost nobody explains. For many investors earning around 8% annually, that threshold usually begins somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 invested. Below that threshold, you're building the engine. Above that threshold, the engine begins building itself. Most people think they're waiting for retirement. They're actually waiting to cross a threshold they didn't even know existed. And once you hear the numbers, you'll understand why spending decades below that threshold completely changes what compounding feels like. Let's change just one variable. Not your investment strategy, not your return, not the market, just the amount you contribute every month. Imagine 4 different investors. Each one invests in the exact same low-cost index fund. Each one earns an average annual return of 8%. Each one stays invested for 30 years. The only difference is the size of their monthly contribution. The first investor contributes $50 every month. After 30 years, the account grows to roughly $74,000. The second contributes $150 every month. That portfolio finishes around $223,000. The third contributes $300 every month and ends up with approximately $447,000. The fourth contributes $500 every month, finishing with nearly $745,000. Now here's what almost everyone misses. Early in the journey, none of those portfolios are doing much work on their own. Imagine your portfolio is worth only $30,000. An 8% return generates about $2,400 a year, or roughly $200 a month. If you're personally investing $300 every month, you're still contributing more than the market is. You're still the engine. Now fast forward until the portfolio reaches around $150,000. At an 8% annual return, the investments themselves generate roughly $12,000 every year. That's about $1,000 every month without you adding another dollar. That's the threshold. The engine is finally helping. Now meet Emily. Emily is 32 years old. She's a registered nurse earning $72,000 a year, and she has already accumulated $42,000 in her investment account. She's done everything she was told to do. She's consistent, she's patient, she's disciplined, she's simply below the threshold. If Emily continues investing $150 every month until age 65, she finishes with roughly $360,000. If she increases that contribution to $300 every month after her next raise, she retires with around $580,000. If she raises it again to $500 every month and automatically invests half of every future raise, her portfolio approaches $900,000. The biggest difference isn't just the ending balance. In the third scenario, Emily reaches the compounding threshold almost 8 years earlier. That gives the engine 8 additional years to power itself, instead of waiting for Emily to do all the work. And that's exactly where most investors make their biggest mistake. Here's what usually happens. Someone invests consistently for years. They check their balance. Progress feels painfully slow. Instead of questioning how much they're contributing, they question the investment itself. They convince themselves they need a higher return. If I could just find something earning 16% a year instead of 8. It sounds reasonable. The math tells a different story. Imagine you invest $200 every month for 10 years and earn 8% annually. Now imagine an impossible scenario where you somehow double your return to 16% every single year for the next decade. Yes, your final balance would be larger, but the improvement is only about $15,000. Now leave the return at the same boring 8%, but increase your monthly contribution from $200 to $350. Over the same period, that one change adds roughly $64,000 to your ending balance. More than 4 times the benefit, without taking extra investment risk, without hunting for the next hot stock, without changing funds every 6 months. The lever wasn't the return, the lever was the threshold. Increasing your contribution moves you toward it faster. Chasing returns usually doesn't. A widely cited Dalbar investor behavior study has repeatedly shown that the average investor earns significantly less than the market over long periods, not because they choose terrible investments, but because they constantly change strategies at the wrong time. Take David. David became convinced his index fund was too slow. He sold it to chase whatever investment had the highest recent returns. 2 years later, after buying high, selling low, and jumping between trends, his portfolio was worth less than if he had simply stayed invested and increased his monthly contribution. Wrong diagnosis, expensive treatment. The reason financial media rarely tells this story is simple. There's no exciting product attached to the advice. Keep buying a boring index fund and gradually contribute more. By the way, hit subscribe if you're getting value from this. YouTube's algorithm may genuinely never surface my videos to you again. Because once you understand why your brain wants to abandon the strategy just before the engine reaches its threshold, you'll stop confusing slow progress with broken progress. The biggest obstacle to building wealth usually isn't mathematics, it's psychology. Think back to that diesel engine. If you've never started one before, there's a moment where you assume something must be wrong because it hasn't turned over yet. You stop turning the key, climb out, and start looking for another vehicle. The problem wasn't the engine. You quit a few seconds too early. Investing creates the exact same emotional trap. During phase 1, the numbers are technically improving every single day, but they're improving too slowly for your brain to register them as meaningful progress. Mathematically, you're moving forward. Emotionally, you feel stuck. That disconnect has been studied for decades. In 2015, Richard Thaler and his colleagues continued expanding the field of behavioral economics by showing that people don't make financial decisions based purely on mathematics. They react to how progress feels, not just what the numbers say. That's why the most expensive investing mistake usually isn't panic selling during a market crash. It's the strategy switch. It's leaving a disciplined, boring plan because another strategy appears to be growing faster. The cruel irony is that many investors switch strategies just before they're approaching the very threshold where compounding finally starts becoming noticeable. There's another fascinating piece of evidence. Research examining long-term brokerage accounts by Brad Barber and Terrence O'Dean found that the investors who traded the most consistently earned lower returns than those who traded less. In other words, the investors who kept their hands off the wheel came much closer to capturing the market's full return. The engine doesn't need constant adjustments. It needs time to reach operating speed. So how do you cross the threshold sooner? Not by chasing higher returns, not by finding a secret investment. You do it by increasing the fuel going into the engine. Here are 3 practical levels. Level 1, the $50 rule. The trigger is simple. The next time you receive your paycheck, before paying for anything extra, increase your automatic investment by $50 per month. 1 login, 15 minutes, that's it. An additional $50 every month, invested for 20 years at an average annual return of 8%, grows to roughly $29,000. Then automate it so you never have to make the decision again. Your future self shouldn't rely on your future motivation. Level 2, the raise split rule. The trigger isn't January, it's your next pay raise. The day your salary increases, commit in advance that half of every raise automatically goes into your investments before you become accustomed to the extra income. Again, 1 account update, about 15 minutes. Suppose that works out to an additional $200 every month. Over 20 years at 8%, that's approximately $118,000 added to your portfolio. Not because you sacrificed more, because lifestyle inflation never had the chance to absorb the money first. The engine receives more fuel before your spending does. Level 3, the finished payment rule. This one catches money that most people never notice. When a car loan ends, when a personal loan is paid off, when childcare expenses decrease, or when any recurring monthly payment disappears. Don't celebrate by increasing your spending. Redirect that exact payment into your investment account on the same day. No waiting, no debating. If that freed up payment is $300 every month, invested for 20 years at 8%, it grows to roughly $177,000. The payment already existed. You're simply giving it a new destination. Every one of these systems does the same thing. They move you toward the threshold faster, not by asking you to become a different person, by making better decisions happen automatically. Here's the part most people never fully appreciate. At an average annual return of 8%, $1 invested today is worth about 7 times more than $1 invested during your 25th year of investing. Same dollar, completely different outcome. Because the first dollar had something the second one never gets. Time. Remember Emily? When we first met her, she believed her portfolio wasn't growing fast enough. But that wasn't the decision she was actually making. The real decision was whether she would remain below the threshold for another 8 years, or cross it sooner by increasing her contributions while time was still on her side. The moment Emily crosses that threshold, her account statement begins looking different. Instead of seeing a balance that grows mostly because of her monthly deposits, she starts seeing months where the market contributes almost as much as she does. That's the moment the engine finally sounds different, not at retirement, long before retirement. That's the milestone worth chasing. Before we finish, I want you to do exactly 3 things. Number 1, open your latest investment statement today and calculate how much your portfolio earned over the last 12 months. Then compare that number with how much you personally contributed during the same period. Write both numbers down. You'll immediately know whether you're still powering the engine yourself or whether you're approaching the threshold. Number 2, write down one number on your calendar today. The monthly contribution that would be exactly $50 higher than your current automatic investment. That's your next target. Not someday, but the next contribution level you're working toward. Number 3, make one decision before your next income increase ever arrives. Whether it's a raise, a bonus, overtime pay, or extra freelance income, decide today that at least half of it will automatically flow into your investment account before you ever see it in your checking account. Future wealth is built by decisions made before the money arrives, not after. If you're still in phase 1, don't mistake slow progress for failed progress, because staying with a deliberate plan while you're building toward the threshold isn't doing nothing. It's exactly what makes the engine powerful enough to carry you for the rest of the journey.